Hello YouTube. I'm back and I have a few things to mention today because we had a busy long weekend in terms of, or I did anyways, in terms of watching things, playing things, reading things, all of the pop culture I love to consume. So the first thing is that I finished Warioland 4 for the Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance is like my favorite handheld system of all time, I think. I like it better than the DS, and the 3DS that are currently out. I like it better than the original Game Boy. I like it better than the PSP. The games all seem to be super fun, no matter what. I don't think I've maybe played one or two bad games on the Game Boy Advance where the designers, I think, just basically didn't give a care and didn't really put in any sort of effort. But the Game Boy Advance games are all so fun, and there's two kind of categories they fall into. I find they're either really short and sweet, which is fine. Short games can be great games, just like Jackal for the NES. But there's also a lot of really long games for the Game Boy Advance with a lot of depth to them. And Wario Land 4 is kind of one of those. The story is that Wario sees this golden pyramid. News of a golden pyramid being discovered in the jungle, and it's rumored to be filled with all sorts of treasure. And so Wario, being Wario, he wants the treasure. So you go to this pyramid and you go through all these different passageways, and you go through all these levels. And at the end of each 4 levels or whatever, there's a boss you have to defeat. And throughout each level, you have to find 4 treasure chests with this portions of a gem or something in it that are necessary to unlock the boss at the end, as well as gain a key to the next kind of level. So it's very puzzly. You got to figure out ways. There's lots of backtracking and changing your environment to make sure you can get to the next stage or the next area of each level. And at the end, you step on this switch, and the end of the level turns into a race. You have a timer to get the rest of your stuff and get back to the start of the level to get out in time. So it's a very tricky game, especially the later you get into it, but super awesome. One of my favorite games I've played on the Game Boy Advance, which is saying something considering how fond I am of this system. The next thing is I finished reading the Thrawn book. Grand Admiral Thrawn is a really kind of beloved Star Wars character that came along in the expanded universe. He took over the Empire after Palpatine's death in the expanded universe, and all the books and stuff that came afterwards that most people don't know about, but hardcore Star Wars people do. He's a blue-skinned alien, a Chiss from the unknown regions of space, and he's like a military tactical genius. He's just so good at strategy and predicting the enemy's next move, and he's just brilliant. So that's despite the Empire hating aliens and other races, he did climb to the ranks and take over the Empire afterwards, and gave the New Republic all sorts of fits. So it all started actually back in all these Thrawn books are written by Timothy Zahn. It all started with this Heir to the Empire. It was a trilogy. It was Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and then the third one, the last one, was called The Last Command. These came out in I guess early to mid 90s they started coming out, and it was my very first taste of the Star Wars expanded universe and all the stories that they created afterwards. I remember we were in Mexico on March break one time, and when I was in the middle of high school, and I read that first book. That was my very first taste of the Star Wars expanded universe, and being such a huge Star Wars fan, I was addicted, and that's what all the books you see behind me and everything like that's what kicked off my whole obsession with continuing Star Wars, and not just what was in the movies. So but this one, the newest one, it's his origins, how he came to be involved with the Empire. He was exiled by his own people on this planet and stranded there, and then the Empire came for some reason, and he basically made them all look stupid and snuck onto their ship and killed a bunch of their guys to try and get away. And they eventually discovered him on one of their ships, and but he'd impressed them so much that he was actually brought before the Emperor, and nobody ever gets along with the Emperor per se, but he appreciated Thrawn's cunning and everything, right? So he was given a chance to become an officer a lieutenant, I guess, and then he just kept the more and more success he had at catching pirates and rebels and all sorts of stuff, the higher he climbed. And so it's just kind of his ascension through the Empire, and all the events kind of end up around the planet Lothal, which is the home planet of Ezra Bridger in the Star Wars Rebels series. And if you watch that series, you'll know that Grand Admiral Thrawn actually makes an appearance in that series and in that system as well. So it all kind of ties everything together, which was pretty cool. And then the third thing was that me and my son James on the weekend watched the Black Panther movie, which was cool because it kind of linked the events of Civil War up to Avengers Infinity War, which I just saw last week. So the movie starts with this kind of cut scene from centuries ago when this meteorite crashes in Africa in the nation of Wakanda, and these 5 tribes war over the meteor wreckage, which contains this super strong metal called vibranium, and they fight over it, and then one day this warrior eats this heart-shaped herb or something like that, which was caused by this meteor, and he gains these kind of superpowers and becomes the first king of Wakanda and unites 4 of the 5 tribes together. And with this metal and the technological advances that it brings them, Wakanda turns from this primitive tribal community into a super scientific, advanced, beyond anything Earth has seen. But they keep it hidden because they don't want the outside world kind of pillaging their resources and all the stuff. So and then it kind of skips ahead to the early 90s when the current king of Wakanda at the time, T'Chaka, heads to Los Angeles, where his own brother is an undercover agent there, keeping an eye on things, and actually wants to take him back to Wakanda for a trial because he knows he's been dealing vibranium weapons to an arms dealer named oh god, now I forget his name, Claw I think it is. And so he had another operative working with his brother, and when his brother flips out and tries to go after this guy, T'Chaka is forced to kill his own brother and leave his brother's son stranded in Los Angeles with no parents. So then it warps ahead to current times, which at the time is just after the events of Civil War, after T'Chaka is killed in that blast, and T'Challa, his son, is the new Black Panther, the new king of Wakanda. So it takes place just after that happens, and T'Challa is about to be officially coronated the king of Wakanda and the new Black Panther. And but soon after that, Claw shows his face again, and he goes after him, and he wants to bring him back, and he can't. He fails in the mission, which causes a bit of strife within some of the tribes, because that's their number one thing, is they want this guy to pay the price for all the misery he's caused the Wakandan people by dealing these weapons and stuff. So then the son of T'Chaka's brother, who was left stranded in Los Angeles in 1992, he learned of his heritage and stuff, and he got really bitter over how he was left to fend on his own. And he's actually, he tracks down Claw and kills him and brings him to Wakanda, which of course impresses one of the tribes especially, and causes all this strife. And then he challenges T'Challa to the Black Panther throne, to the king of Wakanda, and they have this battle, and T'Challa looks like he is lost, so this guy takes over as the Black Panther, and then he's like, Wakanda is not going to stay in the shadows anymore. We're gonna deal weapons, and we're gonna make people pay, and so he's totally taken the Wakandas in a direction most of them don't want to go. But T'Challa ends up not being dead from the battle when he was thrown off the waterfall, and he comes back, and it's just this last kind of fight between the two to kind of reclaim Wakanda, or either let it sink into oblivion like this guy's trying to lead them. So it's a really cool movie. It's very different from most of the other superhero movies, and it was a really cool contrast between kind of the Wakandans, the farming and the primitiveness of it, but also the other side, the hidden Wakanda where everything is so technologically advanced and crazy. So it was a really cool movie, and it was neat because I wasn't very familiar with the Black Panther character in general. I'd heard of him before, but I didn't have any of his comics or anything like that. So it's cool to finally see, you know, kind of what he's all about, and what Wakanda's all about, and the role it plays in Infinity War and stuff, because I really didn't know much about it. So yeah, but it was a great movie. I recommend it, as I do all of the Marvel movies. And yeah, that is all for now. I will be back soon enough.